Hey, I'm Andrew Joseph Keith. I'm an artist, sculptor, and entrepreneur. And in this video, I want to talk a little bit about comparing yourself with others, the pros and the cons. Let's talk about it. Before we get into it, I'd like to hear what you guys think. What do you think are some of the pros and some of the cons of comparing yourself as an artist to other people, or just comparing yourself to other people in general? Pros and cons. Let me hear your comments down below. So the reason that I wanted to address this subject is that there's a competition coming up next week. I helped start what was the Intermountain figure sculpting competition. It became Figure Sculptors United, and so we've done a few competitions. We do a competition, in the spring and in the fall, and so 2 a year, and they're about 6 months apart, and we've rotated, male and female models, and then what we have is a bunch of professional sculptors come and we sculpt from a live model over 3 days. And it's been just a really amazing experience to be able to learn from these other very talented professional sculptors and just be in an environment where there's, a friendly competition, and we're all trying to be at our, peak level and do the best that we can in creating something unique, a sculpture that is, something that can stand for our work and say, this is what we can accomplish in this short time. And so that's kind of the backdrop of why I'm thinking about, what are some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks of comparing ourselves with others. I think, in my own opinion, the arts have moved far towards subjectivism, saying that all art is subjective. That's something that you hear a lot. And I think it's moved too far in that direction. While there are some tastes, while we all have different tastes, there are some elements of art that are subjective. There are many objective metrics that we can use to look at art and to judge it and to say, is this work of art, a masterfully done work, or is it just, an average work, or is it a poorly done work of art? I think that the move away from any objective measures in judging whether an artwork is done well, I think that has been a detrimental thing in the arts. It really has moved art into a more, subjectivist, it's all subjective. There's no good art, there's no bad art, everything's relative. And so I think that's been a really damaging thing. And I think there is a utility in comparison, in being able to compare my own work to other people's work. That has been something that has been very useful to me as an artist, to be able to push me forward, to be able to keep me trying to improve as an artist. Whereas if you honestly believe that all art is subjective, and no matter how hard you work on your artwork, and you work on improving, you work on learning about the figure, you work on modeling, whatever it is, that won't make any difference, because in the end it's all subjective. And if somebody's painting that looks like it was done by a child goes for millions, and yours that you spent a lot of time on and effort on doesn't get nearly the same amount of recognition, that can be really discouraging. The philosophy that all art is subjective, it causes people to become worse, and it doesn't motivate people to strive for improvement, which is what I think is one of the most important things, not only in art, but in life in general, is how can you be a little bit better today than you were yesterday. Another thing that I've done is, on my Instagram page, I've followed a bunch of artists that inspire me. And so when I see somebody's artwork and I think to myself, oh, I would like my artwork to look like their artwork. Like, I would be happy if I created that work of art. Those are the type of people that I follow on my Instagram. And so if I'm following you as an artist on Instagram, then that's a big compliment, because I'm like, well, that is something that I'm striving for. Like, I see your work and I'm really inspired by it. And so I try to follow people and surround my feed with people that inspire me, that are very talented at what they do, whether it's drawing, painting, or sculpture, and people that just get me to think like, wow, that is something that's possible, because somebody that was an artist at some point did that work of art, so it's something that is within the realm of possibility. So some of the pros of being able to compete and compare yourself with other artists, especially talented artists, let's say people that are better than you are, some of the pros of that is that it does raise the bar. It raises the bar on yourself, and you start to surround yourself with people that are better than you, even just on your feed, artists whose work inspires you and who have spent a lot of time in their craft. And that does raise the bar for you, because then you see your work in comparison. And once you surround yourself with enough of this visual stimulation that impresses you and just says, wow, this person really understood what they were doing as an artist, you start to develop an artist's eye. You start to develop the ability to see when your work is not up to that standard. And so the benefit of that is it does raise the bar. Observing other people that are more talented than you, that pulls you forward. Now, what you should also realize is, maybe I think I follow around, maybe 300 or 400, something like that, people on Instagram, artists who I'm inspired by, who I think, they're very good at what they do. And the flip side of that is I have to realize that there are thousands upon thousands of people that post their artwork on Instagram that I don't follow because I don't feel like their artwork is up to that standard. And so when you do surround yourself only with people that are the best at what they do, then it can be very discouraging. It can be discouraging because you realize, wow, I am so far behind these other talented artists who have really mastered their craft. I'm so far behind. How am I ever going to be able to compete at that level? And it depends on what you want to do, but you don't necessarily have to compete at that level to be a successful artist. It really depends on what you're looking to do as an artist. Something important to realize is that you are not them. You haven't had their life. You haven't had their advantages that they have had. You haven't had whatever disadvantages they have had. And so something that is important, and it's a quote from Jordan Peterson, and I think it's a useful one, is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who somebody else is today. That's something that's important to keep in mind while you're being inspired by these other talented artists. You're looking at who they are today, especially if you're a younger artist. You're looking at people that have had years of experience and they've had years to master and really develop their skills as an artist. You're maybe years behind, or maybe you're older years ahead and you're like, how are these younger people doing all of this incredible stuff? But you don't know what they've gone through, the hours that they've spent getting ready and preparing, and the hours of just working on their craft. It's not really an apples to apples comparison whenever you're comparing yourself to somebody else, but you can compare yourself to who you were last week, last month, last year, and say, am I improving? And so when you do get discouraged from looking at other people that are really talented, take a break and look over at your past work and say, am I improving? Because if you can say that you're improving, even if it's just 1%, let's say that you spend an hour a day working on your craft and you just improve 1% per day, that is huge. Even if it's 1% per week, that is huge, because that is exponential growth. That means that, that 1%, it compounds and you get better and better, and your understanding grows and your skill level grows, and you start to master that craft if you can work on it consistently over time. Being able to have a balance of comparing yourself with others who are more talented than you, because there's always going to be somebody that's better than you at most things, at almost everything, unless you're the best in the world at your particular craft. There's going to be somebody that's better than you, and there's going to be somebody that you can learn from. So being able to be teachable, humble, learning from other people, and inspired by other people. There's a virus going around of people wanting to tear down those that are better. Basically wants to tear down those ideals. So when somebody's work is shown as an ideal, this is, what other artists are aspiring to achieve. This sculpture by Bernini or something like that. Whenever somebody's work is held up as an ideal, then there are people looking to tear that down because it puts their work in a bad light. And it does, and any ideal does do that. Every ideal is a judge and says, you know what, you're not reaching the potential that you could be, because that ideal is always just a little bit beyond what you can do. But when you tear down the ideal, then you're basically lost. You don't have anything to strive for. So I think there does need to be a balance. You have to realize where you're at, and you have to be grateful for and encouraged by your small incremental improvements. But you also have to be able to say, you know what, there's a long way to go, and that way you're always trying to improve, because there's really only improving. You're either improving or you're getting worse. There's really no staying at the same level, at that plateau forever. You'll either, start to get better again, or you'll start to get worse, but you won't stay at a plateau exactly as good as you are right now for the foreseeable future. It just doesn't happen. So if you're not improving, you're getting worse. And so that's something that is important to keep in mind and important to remind ourselves of. We can always improve. Let's compare ourselves to who we were yesterday. Let's use other people's work as inspiration of the potential that maybe we could reach if we really invested ourselves in becoming the best that we could be, and just enjoy the journey. So those are the things that I think are the big takeaways. If you're interested in sculpture, you can check out the Proco Figure Sculpting Fundamentals course, which is going on right now. And so the last assignment has to do with gesture studies in sculpture, which is a really fun assignment. I encourage you to do that over at proco.com/sculpture. You can support me on Patreon. That would really help me out. I do 2 projects each month on Patreon, walk you through my process of sculpting. So if you're interested in that, there's a link in the description below to get to my Patreon page. You can also get my ebook, An Artist's X-Ray Vision, the male figure. That one's out right now. I'm working on the second version, which is going to be on the female figure. I'm excited about that one, and that one will be coming out soon. If you'd like to be notified about that, you can reach out to me on Instagram, send me your email, and I'll add you to my email list so that you can be notified, so you can be among the first to get that second ebook on the female figure. Each one is less than $10 for the ebook, and I put a lot of work into it, and those should be really helpful for anybody that is interested in figurative art. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.